Federal Inland Revenue Service establishes tax office for non-resident Nigerians. Don't implement telecom providers' new USSD charge. Central Bank of Nigeria directs banks. World Bank approves 3 billion naira for Nigeria's power sector as US-China trade war sustains uncertainties on the global market. Details of these and more on Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Muplang Dakok. Ministry of Communications has reacted to the viral text message allegedly sent by the mobile network operator MTN Nigeria and other mobile operators notifying subscribers of a 4 naira charge per 20 seconds on USSD access to banking services from Monday 21st of October 2019. The Minister of Communications, Isa Ali Ibrahim, directed the sector regulator, the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, to ensure that the operator suspends such plans until the proper briefing on the issue is done. Meanwhile, the Central Bank of Nigeria has directed banks to shun telecommunication providers that increase USSD charge. The CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, said since the telcos were adamant about increasing the charge, banks should move their business to any telco that is ready to offer the service at a lower cost. From the World Bank spring meetings in Washington, Leah Katung Babatunde reports on some of the key fiscal outcomes.
Nigerian delegation came for this year's annual meeting with a wish list, and right on top of it is the facility to rejuvenate the power sector. This is a crucial moment for the nation as it agrees to enter the continental trade space. However, critical infrastructure is pivotal in enjoying a level playing field with the ever-growing demand for jobs, and that is exactly what the Nigerian government is raising resources for as global trade surge.
And if we're able to expand the amount to 4 billion, the additional 1 billion is for the distribution network. So it will help us to exit the subsidy that is now inherent in the power sector. It's supposed to be to reform the sector, to restore the distribution business side of the sector, especially on a stronger footing, so that they are freed up enough to be able to go out and raise financing to invest in expanding the distribution networks.
Climate change is also a factor here. Reviving the lake chart will be taking in $170 million.
We participated in the meeting with our 4 neighboring countries. This meeting was convened by the World Bank Regional Vice President for Africa to find ways of reducing fragility through a new World Bank regional intervention. At the end of the meeting, we were able to conclude that Nigeria needed to be included in phase 1 of the project, along with the 3 other countries, and we started discussing possible projects that could be rolled out under this regional support.
And as the team departs for Nigeria, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning say government is willing to be much more transparent following the applause it got here on the nation's debt profile and disclosure. She also affirms the government is capable of weeding out vulnerabilities and returning the economy to the desired growth trajectory. From the World Bank headquarters in Washington, D.C., Leah Katungbaba today.
And still from Washington, the Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, said Nigeria's borders were closed to curb illegal trading activities by Nigeria's neighbors. She said the closure would remain in force until the country secures the commitment of its neighbors to trade agreements and treaties signed by them. In the same vein, the Central Bank Governor Godwin Emefiele said the border closure became necessary when neighboring countries failed to heed several warnings to stop smuggling into Nigeria.
Nigeria is a country that has its own policy, and we will have a responsibility to put in place policies that will help engender growth in our country. Policies that will help grow our own manufacturing and agricultural sector. And to that extent, we've heard since 2015, Mr. President saying that there is a need for us to eat what we grow and grow what we eat. And so Nigeria cannot allow a situation where, while the President of Nigeria says we must grow what we eat or produce what we eat or eat what we produce, that then another country allows this same policy to be undermined because they allow the smuggling of the same goods that Mr. President said we should produce. They allow this product to be smuggled through their borders into Nigeria. And I repeat, since 2015, the president, the government of Nigeria has been engaging these countries about the need for them to control the influx of some of these smuggled goods into Nigeria. But I can tell you, nothing happened.
And that the closure was not meant to be punitive. It was meant to be for us to restore our relationship with our neighbors back to the commitments that we made. So let me give you an example. The commitment that we have within these countries is that goods can come through your ports to Nigeria, but when they come, they're supposed to come in sealed containers, escorted to Nigeria for the Nigerian customs to open them and do their own inspection as well as charge duties. But that's not what is happening. They allow containers to be opened, and also they allow goods to be smuggled beyond the formal borders through several illegal routes. Now that we have committed to the AFCFTA, we have to ensure that the rules are obeyed. Otherwise, our local industries will be greatly affected. Our businesses have been suffering because of the activities of smugglers, but with the opening up, with the more opening up of the following our commitment to the AFCFTA, this will get worse unless we make sure now that everybody comes back to obey the rules as they are laid out.
Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, has backed Nigeria's closure of its borders with some neighboring countries over issues bordering on illegal trade. Mr. Abebe Selassie, the director of the African Department of the IMF, said the position at a media briefing on the sidelines of the World Bank IMF annual meetings in Washington. Selassie said although free trade was critical to economic growth of the continent, it must be legal and in line with agreements. He added that the IMF was hoping for a speedy resolution of the issues as the action was already taking a toll on the economies of the country's neighbors. Today on the program, we'll be discussing the border closure and what it means for Nigeria as the IMF supports the border closure. We are being joined in the studio by the President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Kabiru Ibrahim. Thank you so much for coming on Business Express today.
You are welcome. Thank you.
Okay. So what does this border closure mean to your association? How do you see it?
Well, the farmers are getting good value for their produce because we are protected.
Okay.
You know, when you allow an influx of produce into the country, we tend not to get value because some of the produce, or take, for instance, rice that comes from Thailand. It's probably 10 years old in their silo. And what we produce here costs more in production. And therefore, when you get to the market, the one that is dumped here costs less. So we are not able to sell what we produce. So it's a very welcome decision. We support it 100%.
Okay. So how has the closure been concerning the economic well-being of farmers in Nigeria? Would you say it has impacted on them one way or the other?
Well, you see the effect is there, but you know, we are also consumers of some of the things. And so there are pockets of complaints here and there, just like every other Nigerian complaints. But on a general scale,
Yes.
we are getting good value for our produce, and we're happy for it.
Okay. And there is complaints in some quarters that farmers in Nigeria may not be able to meet the food needs of the country. Is that true? What's your position about that?
Well, you see, people can be skeptical, but given that we are challenged by inadequacy of this produce, we will work a little bit more, and so many others will join us. Because even you, we expect that you become a farmer. So everybody is embracing agriculture, because that space is where everybody should be.
So what is being done to encourage agriculture? Your association, for instance, what are you doing to encourage other farmers?
We are an advocacy group.
Okay.
Like what I'm saying now, we are happy. If the prices are good, we are happy. And then we talk with government, we interface with government on all issues. And the current Minister of Agriculture is one of our own. He was our chairman in Kano. So he is very, very supportive of us. And we are involved in everything that goes on. So we will tell people that the agriculture space is the place to be. And the agri-business is the coming thing. Don't go to the farm for, just to eat and survive, subsistence. No, agriculture should be a business. So just like people are playing in oil and other sectors, we expect that they will come into agriculture with the same, expectation.
Okay. So what more needs to be done in order to boost food sufficiency in the country? Yes, we know that more people should go into farming, but what more needs to be done?
There are a lot of things that should be done. Contiguous with the plan, our power has to be right, transportation needs to be right, our science and technology needs to be right, and we need to mechanize. Because it's only when these things are in place that we can process what we produce, so that we add value to what we produce.
Okay. Let's go back to the issue of the border closure. So now that the borders have been closed, what is the way forward for agriculture in Nigeria?
Well, I believe that this is it's a very temporary thing.
Yes.
Once our neighbors play the game the way it should be, the borders will be opened. Because, the new Africa continental free trade area
yes.
Means that the other countries in Africa will have to do some trade with us. So we cannot exist in isolation.
Yes.
So this is a matter of time. We have to tighten our rope if people do not play the game the way they should. And a lot of these things, it's an admixture of so many things, when you do business like this. First, every country in the world does some form of protectionism. You create hurdles so that your country will not be subjected to an influx of those things that you have competence in. So you tend to say that these things have to meet certain standards to be able to come in.
Yes.
But by and large, the world is a global village now. Everybody else gets whatever they need from any other place. So we cannot live in isolation. We know definitely that this is hurting, and then it is temporary.
Okay.
Something is going to give at some point. So we look forward to it, but I tell you, it is a very good step in the right direction.
All right. Let's move away a bit from agriculture. because the borders have been closed for now, and it's not only because of agricultural products. There are other produce that no longer come into the country. So what is the way forward, would you say, for, say, manufacturing, for instance?
Look, when you take a decision, certain areas will definitely suffer. But if a decision has to be taken, it must be taken. But the most important decision is that we must be able to feed ourselves. And we must learn to eat what we grow and grow what we eat. It is possible that you are referring to luxury items, like the clothes I wear. Probably they don't, our textiles do not produce the type of clothes I wear. Be careful when you look at countries like the Sudan. Most of the people there wear clothes that are produced there. So maybe it's a status symbol if I wear this, but when I come to terms with reality, I would start using what I have here. The cars we drive, you see there are so many cars in Abuja that maybe one person may have 20. And you can only drive one car at a time. So once our mindset changes, we will begin to realize that there are more important things to do.
Let's take a final question. You've said your association is in support of the closure of the borders. And can you give us some advantages that you think come with the closure of the borders?
Well, I've just told you, we have been harping on one, that what we produce has value. You see, what most of us do is purely agriculture. If I produce anything and I'm able to get good value for it, then I will be able to do other things with the value I get. There is nothing better than that. You know, so that I don't just produce what to eat. I produce what to even pay school fees and do many other things with what I produce. And that there is nothing better than that.
All right. Your final thoughts on the closure of the border?
As I said, this would be, I'm sure, it's a very temporary thing.
Okay.
We must be mindful of other things that we need from elsewhere, and then we can expand our market also by opening the borders, because there will come a time, I hope, that we will be able to produce much more than we need. So we must be able to take it out. We've just signed on the Africa Free Trade Area. We are supposed to take what we produce from here up to Timbuktu. If we produce surplus, we must be able to sell it. So it is in our larger interest to open the borders. But it's good to protect it for now because of unscrupulous individuals who smuggle these things. They bring it through the back door. And that is not good for Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Kabiru Ibrahim, President of All Farmers Association of Nigeria, for coming on Business Express today.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, moving on. The Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, has established a tax office dedicated to the administration of taxes for non-resident persons. This is contained in a public notice signed by the Executive Chairman, FIRS, Tunde Fowler. The notice clarified that non-resident person refers to foreign company as defined in the company's income tax, or an individual who is resident outside Nigeria and derives income or profit from Nigeria. The notice said that FIRS has identified non-resident taxpayers as very important segment of the tax-paying public for the purposes of devoting to them specialized attention. Fowler said the devotion of attention to this segment of taxpayers is to enhance tax certainty, promote voluntary compliance, reduce tax disputes, and avoid incidents of double taxation. The dollar stepped back on Friday after a soft U.S. service sector survey fueled worries that pressure from U.S. trade disputes with China and other countries. Here's the exchange rate. It was a week of losses on the Nigerian Stock Exchange as investors lost 41.46 billion naira week on week. Boste Able has a summary of market activities.
The NSE All-Share Index and market capitalization both depreciated by 0.32% to close the week at 26,448.62 and 12.8 trillion naira. All other indices finished lower, with the exception of NSE Insurance, NSE Mary Value, NSE Consumer Goods, and NSE Lotus 2 indices, which appreciated by 2.37%, 0.17%, 0.12%, and 0.46%, while the NSE ASM index closed flat. A total turnover of 896.6 million shares worth 16.5 billion naira in 12,638 deals were traded by investors. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 597.1 million shares valued at 6.7 billion naira in 7,197 deals. The consumer goods industry followed with 102.1 million shares worth 7.2 billion naira. The third place was service industry with a turnover of 84 million shares worth 377 million naira in 264 deals. The top three equities were Guarantee Trust Bank PLC, Global Spectrum Energy Services PLC, and Flour Mills Nigeria PLC. They jointly accounted for 302.2 million shares worth 5.5 billion naira in 1,290 deals. A total of 960 units of exchange traded products ETPs valued at 146,642 naira 75 kobo were traded in 11 deals. Also, 9 deals of a total of 1,397 units of federal government bonds valued at 1.5 million naira were traded.
Trading on the Nigerian stock market began the week in red. The all-share index lost 0.22% to close at 26,390.08 basis points. Market capitalization stood at 12.8 trillion naira. Volume of trades was 245.8 million, traded in 2,514 deals valued at 1.36 billion naira. The top gainers for the day were May Baker, ETI, and Trans Express. Time now for a look at prices of commodities on the global market. And that brings us to the end of this edition of Business Express. You can access all previous episodes on YouTube, and you can also communicate with us on Twitter. The handle is at NTA News Now. The hashtag is BizX. We value your feedback, so keep the mails coming and join us again on Wednesday for another edition. I am Muplang Dakok.